Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another session. So, yesterday we have been talking about how to select a topic, and we have discussed in detail that what is the right scientific way of selecting a topic. One thing is very important that yes, you should have some area of interest, and beside area of interest, what you need to do, you need to find out the right kind of journal, maybe on Web of Science or maybe on Scopus. And from that journal, what you need to do, you check that journal and take maybe last 3 or 5 year copies, go through all that and see the limitation and see the future research, and that will give you a justification that why did you select this topic. If you defend your topic that my supervisor told me something, I felt that this should be a topic. See, in your research work, who are you to say like this? Because whatever you say, you need to defend that. You need justification, whatever you are writing, whatever you are saying. So, as yourself being a person, you cannot give a justification. What you need to do, you need to give some reference, and reference will come when you read review of literature. And the way we need to go through review of literature, we already have discussed that you don't need to go each and every journal. You don't need to go. Just find out one journal, and from that you can read that okay, this is the top journal, this is the referee journal, and this is linked with my topic, my area of interest, and it will give me as one topic, it will assist me to select a topic. And when you select that topic, you should have a justification. How that justification will come, we will talk when we will talk about review of literature. And I will tell you, don't worry, I will guide you how to go through review of literature and how to make notes out of that, so that in future again and again you are not supposed to go and read that paper, right? So that we will discuss. And second thing, very very important thing we discussed yesterday, that um, what about the primary work you need to do besides selecting a topic. So very important thing, as we discussed yesterday also, that PhD is not about collection of data. PhD is not all about analysis of that data. More than that, you must know what construct, what variable, uh, and what kind of hypothesis, what kind of research questions, what kind of objectives you have decided to work on. So these things are very very important. So as a researcher, what would be your responsibility? Will you be responsible for English? No, you cannot be good in English, don't worry about it. So for that, we discussed yesterday, you need to find out a right person who would be good in English, who would be good in editing. And I have seen a lot of places in, like in Delhi University, we have a few computer shops, and there if you go, you will see an expert. So they edit your work and give you the right information, or they correct whatever mistakes are there. And they have a format also. In that format, you can put your script or the PhD work. Now, second thing, do you need to learn all statistical techniques and tools? If you learn each and everything as far as stats concerned, English is concerned, that would be another kind of PhD. So you're not supposed to go back in 12th class or 11th class from where you will learn statistics, mean, median, mode, then other things, advanced things. You're not supposed to do that. But what you need to do, you need to understand the concept that why you're using this tool. And you don't need to learn R, you don't need to learn SPSS. You need to find out a right person who is good in that, and tell him or her that this is my objective, this kind of hypothesis I have developed, could you please help me? And definitely these people are there, they help you, right? So, and for that, you, if you need to pay, you can pay for that also. That's, yeah, because it's a just a one time life work, right? Because never you will not get this kind of chance to write your PhD again and again. So you will be writing your PhD once. So don't mind if you need to pay money to get your work edited, or you need to pay for what you call SPSS statistical tool analysis. So be ready for that. Now, as a scholar, as a researcher, we have discussed yesterday what you need to do. You need to understand the conceptual framework of your article, research paper, dissertation, or thesis. If you don't know that you would be in trouble, right? I remember uh, there was a one I was taking one viva of PhD student, and I asked her. She was working on this what you called ratio analysis. So ratio analysis, different kind of ratio analysis. She has taken different 5 or 10 companies, and she made a kind of comparison on the basis of ratio analysis. So there is a one liquidity ratio in ratio analysis. So I asked why the ratio should be this. I mean, 2:1 or 1:2, I don't remember. So, but she was not able to defend why it should be 2:1 or 1:2. So, before you move further, what you need to do, you need to understand the basics of your concept. So, in this discussion, I'm trying my best to give you some kind of understanding that when you start your primary work, when you start with your preliminary work, what you need to do, you need to understand the uh, constructs which you have taken for your study. And yesterday we have taken two examples. One was smoking and grades or the performance, and second was also the intelligence and the performance. So this kind of example gave you, I believe, some kind of understanding that yes, you will be having some kind of construct in your work also, because I believe you all belong to social science. In social science, these all constructs, these all phenomena, but which we talk about yesterday, I had given you a few examples like motivation, the leadership, what do you call, employees engagement, employees performance, happiness. These all are terms which cannot define in one dimension. They are multidimensional, concepts. So we call them construct. So you might have noticed in your research also you will be having similar kind of things, similar kind of activities. So now we have discussed the concept. I hope you understand. We have discussed the construct. I hope that is clear to you. We had discussed variable also. I hope you remember that. Now, before I move further, because what next after variable? What we need to do? Because variable is something which we supposed to measure with quantitative terms, right? That we have discussed yesterday. Construct is something which we cannot easily define in terms of quantitative terms, but in qualitative terms we can define it, right? But as a researcher, as a scholar, what we need to do, we need to measure each and everything in quantitative terms. And it's not a fashion, it has been there for many, many years. Because if you can't put everything in quantitative terms, it would be very difficult to make comparison. It would be very difficult to understand what you want to do. And secondly, you would not be sure that whether this is this or not. For example, if you find out mean of some value, that mean is really significant. How significant that mean is? So for that, what we need to, or how significant this class is, we can see that this class is very boring, bored class. I hate this class. But how significant what you say? To understand that significance, to understand that the reason of that significance, we need to use statistical techniques and statistical tools. That's why you might have noticed when we write hypothesis, we see that this is significant, statistically significant. Statistically significant means that yes, actually whatever number it is representing, is it showing us a real picture, or it's not a real, it's something which, so there may be something which is hidden. We are it shows something, but I'm not sure about it. To make it significant, to make it sure, we need to use tools and techniques, which is statistical tools and techniques. So next, what after variable? So you have got your variables, you have constructs. Now question arises, with the variables, how to measure it, how to measure the constructs. So next things comes in our mind that to measure a particular construct with the help of variable, we need to design a questionnaire. We call it scale, we call it measurement also. I hope you all are with me. Say yes in your chat box, everybody, so that I can see you all. In YouTube also, you can please everybody in chat box write yes so that I can see you all are with me. Everybody, and here let me see how many of you are here with me. Okay, good, good. Everybody, thank you, everybody. Thank you. You all are with me. Thank you. So nice of you. Thank you. Let us continue. Let us continue. Thank you very much. Okay. So what we need to do, the question arises here, what next? What would be the next thing after variable? So after you have your variable, you have your construct, that would be our duty. In most of the time, we have to go for a particular scale, particular measurement. So that measurement scale is called questionnaire. And frequently you might have noticed that we use questionnaire to collect data. Now my question here to all of you, please listen carefully. What you will be doing, how to get that questionnaire. So my question was that what we need to do after variable. So variable, for example, we have been talking about IQ, right? IQ is a variable and construct was intelligence. IQ is a test which is made of some questions, right? In research methodology, we call it statements, questions, and actually we call them items, right? Please note down everybody. So we have moved from construct to variable to items. So we can have items. Now question arises here, uh, can we measure the constructs with one dimension or with two dimension or three dimension, four dimension? So construct could be further divided into two or three dimension, because your area may cover something that okay, this part I want to cover, this part I want to cover, this part I want to cover. So you can bifurcate your construct into sub constructs, right? Uh, if you want, I can show you one example. For example, violence. Now violence is a term which let me show you where is that violence example. Okay, okay, it's here. I show you. Yesterday we were talking about violence and that example is here. Okay, you can see this particular slide. Violence may be of different type. Here you can see the different domain, different dimensions, rather than domain, the dimensions of violence. Violence can be in terms of physical, violence can be in terms of psychological, violence can be in terms of emotion, violence can be sexual, violence can be financial, violence can be a social legal. So here we are talking about violence, concept of violence on a woman. Now, would you like to take all these sub dimensions of violence, physical, psychological, emotional, sexual, financial, and social legal? Right? Let me see the chat box. Everybody, tell me, if I ask you, I request you to conduct a research, and violence is a kind of construct, and under violence we have different these, what you call, small domain or dimensions, right? Would you like to take all? So I got one reply. Vaishali Chauhan has mentioned that yes, we will be taking all. So my question to you, Vaishali, don't you think that if you go to a woman and ask for physical violence, she would reply? You talk about psychological, I'm not sure whether she knows it or not. Emotional, okay, she can give some example. But if you ask this sexual one, she will not reply at all. Now, if you want to capture physical, so what kind of questions you will ask? You may ask that how many times your husband, beat you, right? Physically, did he torture you? Psychological also, that whether whenever you demands anything, he give you that product or not, right? Emotionally, if I want to go back to my home, do you need some permission from your husband? Financial, what about money? Your husband provide you sufficient money to take care of your family? But if you take this sexual one, I believe they will not discuss this. This is very personal. But if the same, all these sub-dimension of violence you discuss in US, you discuss in European country, people will not mind about this sexual one, right? So that's why I'm saying, before you go for variables, so physical, these all are dimension, or you can call variables. So this violence can have these different dimensions. Now you need to decide for your construct what kind of sub dimensions you are taking, or sub construct you are taking for your research. So physical, that like I said, that how many times your husband beat you, right, or physically torture you. So you will have that, okay, 2 times in a month. So this kind of question you can create, right? Psychologically, emotional, social, financial, right? So this is something. So these questions would be items. So I think things are clear to all of you. Violence, then these physical, psychological variables, and then further. Now my question to all of you: how many minimum questions or items would be required in each and every dimension of a construct? Minimum, tell me. So suppose we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 dimension, right? So for physical, suppose we take example, what should be the minimum number of items or minimum number of questions you need to have? You need to make sure that these minimum question you should have in your questionnaire, so that you can further do research. Anyone? Let me see. So note down this very important question. If you are making your own questionnaire, this is mandatory. Please, everybody note down. Tell me, let me see here the response also. If someone is giving me response, let me see who is giving me response. Okay, so here Shivlal research, Sakshi says Shiv thank you, Sakshi Sefare. 3, 4, Ravi Verma say 10, 15. I said minimum. Krishna Prakash 5, Shivlal research scholar 6. Okay, go ahead. I got reply Sheetal Rana, Sunil, nice session. Sorry, Bulam, Sheetal say 5. Okay, great, 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 great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. So I hope with this example things are clear to you. So note down everybody, when you use your statistical tools and techniques, it's a mandatory that for each and every subdimension of a construct or a variable, you must have at least 3 items. But thumb rule should be, I personally feel it should be minimum 4. I request you, right? So whenever you design or construct your own questionnaire for each and every dimension, right, you need to have at least 4 items or 4 questions. Maximum there is no problem. You can go for, I don't know, 20, 30, 35. That's up to you. Don't worry about it. But minimum is the condition. For statistical tools techniques, they say 3, but I feel I made a thumb rule that minimum 4. So note down everybody, we would be needed minimum 4, right? Now, uh, next question arises. Do you really need to develop or structure your own questionnaire? Tell me everybody. Because generally I have seen that people write that a self-structured, self-designed questionnaire we have been using. So this is another kind of learning. Listen carefully, everybody. Let me see your response first. Do you feel that is it mandatory that you need to design your own questionnaire? Yes, thank you, Vasu. Thank you, Sarish. Say not always suitable to our topic. Thank you. Yes, sir, but topic concern. Okay, great. Let me see YouTube also. Uh, Tell me, everybody, do you feel that you would be needed your own questionnaire? Everybody on YouTube, you can reply. I can see a lot of people there. And here we got reply. Varushali Kulkarni say yes, and Krishna Prakash say yes. Okay, great. And yeah, thank you, Sheetal Rana. Now, please don't mention anything except the question answer you need to give. Okay. So now one caveat over here. One caveat. Thank you, Monica. Listen carefully, everybody. If you design and develop your own questionnaire, there would be a problem. Problem of validity and reliability. Right? That we will discuss. Don't worry about it. What is the reliability and validity? So what is solution? What is the solution? Whatever research we conduct, we feel that after completion of this work, after I write my thesis, after I send my writer for publication, it will have acceptance. And I see that it would be acceptable in the term that anyone can generalize it. So that is the motto of our research paper, research work, that in the whole world, my paper, my script, my research would be generalizable. That means that would be acceptable. But if you have used your own questionnaire, don't you think you would be in trouble? Because people in the whole world, they will say that what about, they will ask for the validity and reliability of your questionnaire. And checking reliability and validity with the help of statistical tools and techniques, I mean, it's not an easy job. Checking the validity of your questionnaire, it would not be an easy job, I'm telling you. So what is the solution? So if that means you are going to design, if you are constructed your own, it means you are going to design a new measurement, new scale. Do you think there is need? No need of designing your own questionnaire. In 80 to 9% research, generally what happens? People take already developed, already designed, already tested, and it's not designed developed by someone in India. It may be designed and developed, proposed by anyone on this earth. And what happens? This same questionnaire has been taken, has been used, has been researched in different country, right? And you can ask, what about plagiarism? My dear participants, if you take that questionnaire, it would not come under plagiarism. Don't worry about it. So what you need to do, when you select your variables, when you select your subdimensions of your construct, check what kind of questionnaires are available and how many people in different country, maybe one or two country, they have selected, they have taken that particular scale or questionnaire or measurement, and they have used it. Like for example, you remember for service quality, ServiQual is there for last 30 years, and everybody use that ServiQual questionnaire model. There is no harm. If you design your own, then validity and reliability would be a big question mark, right? Validity and reliability means that if you use again and again and again, will it give similar kind of result? One thing, right? and how many times it has been used by different people, right? So here reliability and validity would not be an issue, believe me. Now, when you check reliability and validity, it has become fashion now that we check reliability and validity. So that reliability or validity would not be of a questionnaire. That reliability and validity which you do, which is basically this exploratory and confirmatory analysis you do. So conformity analysis you do for what? For a questionnaire which has been developed by someone, and you have taken it and you have used it for your work. So you don't need to explore it. You need to confirm that, okay, now I'm confirming it that it has been tested, it has been done earlier, and I am again confirming it, right? Now suppose you want to make your own. In that case you need to go for exploratory analysis. In exploratory analysis it's not an easy job, I am telling you. You will be, it would be another kind of research where you are designing what you call a questionnaire. So in 80-90% cases, generally what we do, we take a questionnaire scale or measurement which has been already designed, developed by someone else, and many other researchers in different country, they have used it and they have been using it in their research, and the same questionnaire you can take for your work. There is no issue. So please note down everybody, two important things we have discussed in last 40 minutes, that don't try. I mean, if you feel something that which is not you will not see in the world except in India, then go for that, right? And it would be a tedious work if you go for exploratory analysis. That we will discuss what is that. Don't worry about it. But here question arises, why to take already developed design questionnaire? The first things, no problem of plagiarism. The person who has built it, he will not say anything to you, don't worry about it. And the whole world is using it, and when you use it, the same measurement, same scale, same questionnaire, then generability or the acceptability of your research would be high. Then anyone on this earth will say that, okay, you have used the same questionnaire, that means in your own community, in your own society, in your own culture, you have similar kind of activity, you have similar kind of things. Maybe, for example, like I mentioned here, if you talk about violence, in violence you saw a domain, a subdomain which is linked with sexual harassment or sexual violence. And I said that if you go to a woman in India, ask for sexual violence, will she reply? Let me see your response, everybody. Will she reply? Will she disclose the harassment or a violence on her, and in terms of sexual harassment, sexual violence? So next what? After construct, we have subdimension of constructs, variables, variable further bifurcated into attributes or items or questionnaire questions. And we have discussed that in most of the cases, what we need to do, already developed, already designed questionnaire, please try to collect it, because if you collect already designed developed questionnaire, it will definitely help you in the sense it will, your result, your analysis will have more generability, will have more acceptance, and I wish that you want that, right? Now next what? After attribute or items, how we can collect that? If suppose we ask you to design your own questionnaire, so what would be that form? In how many format you can collect data? So one could be like generally we do yes or no, right? Then we feel that yes or no is very basic. That do you like this lecture? Some people say yes, but more people say no. So for yes and no, what kind of information you gonna collect? Very simple information, that out of 200 people, 150 people say no, they don't like this lecture. Only 50 people say they like this lecture. So you're gonna get some kind of frequency. So if you conduct this kind of research, do you feel it's good information you have collected, right? And if you have this kind of frequency, if you have this kind of data, this kind of information, it may reflect on something, but if you want to really go for some more statistical advanced tools and techniques, you wouldn't be able to go for that. First thing. Second important thing, right? Second important thing, what you can do, what you will ask for. You may ask for, suppose you ask a person, a man, what about your salary? So if I ask in your questionnaire that what is your salary? What is your income? So do you think he will reply? Or ask a woman about her age. Will she reply? So similarly, we can have some questions where we stuck and you don't see because of some limitation in our own culture, you won't see that people would like to reply. If they reply, they will not give right kind of answer, right? So let us move further from yes or no to what we call one more step ahead. So we can say that, okay, you belong to a group where your salary is high. You feel you belong to a group which where salary is medium. You belong to a group where you feel that your income level is low. So you're not defining how much this medium is more than low, how much this high is more than medium. So that in that way you can collect some information. So here you don't know how much low is less than medium and how much less medium is less than more. So that would be another kind of information, another kind of way to collect data. Now go more precise. If same question we ask that your income is between 10,000 to 20,000, 20,000 to 40,000, 40,000 to 60,000, something like that, right? Or, so if you ask like this, what would happen? Similarly, like age, you belong to a age between 20 to 25, 25 to 50, like this, right? So this could be another way of collection of data or making your own questions. Now, next would be, if you want to know the like and dislike preferences, human behavior, generally we do in psychology. So you cannot ask for yes or no, you cannot ask for low, high, medium, you cannot ask for, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50,000. Because, for example, if I say sweet, or suppose, yeah, sweet. How sweet is it? How bitter is it? So you will say, okay, I don't know, but I want to give my answer to this sweetness. Or instead of sweetness or bitterness, let me take your response toward this lecture. How do you react to this particular, how would you like to respond to this lecture? So some of you will feel that it's okay. Some of you feel that it's not so okay. Very boring lecture. Some of you feel that okay, it's really good lecture. So different people, now what we are doing, we are collecting your opinion. We are trying to know your views, your likes, your dislikes. So whenever this kind of situation occur, we have one scale called Likert scale. On that we collect data, right? And the last, where we actually collect the exact information. So we have discussed 3-4 different ways of collecting data, and what we call these kind of data, we will discuss about it, and it is called levels of measurement. So when you measure some opinion, like, dislike, or people preferences, right? So when we measure it, when we collect information from them, we need to design some attributes, some items, some questions, but how to ask these people, how to ask these questions to respondents. So one way, as I mentioned, yes or no. The second could be low, medium, high. Third could be like I has mentioned, that what you do, you bifurcate into 10,000 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, something like that. Then I said that something could be which you cannot easily convert into numerical terms. So you need to develop a Likert scale where you talk about, you want to know people's like, dislike, something like that. And the final is another way of collecting data where you want exact information means what is your age, so you will calculate age. Today my age is this. What is your income? I need your salary slip. So in salary slip they will mention that, okay, 25,090 rupees 65 paisa, right? So I hope this is clear to all of you. Now, technically, this was just a conceptual understanding of how to collect information from individual. Now let us go, and we call this a levels of measurement. We call it levels of measurement. Now, Stanley Smith Stevens in 1946 defined these four levels of measurement or rating scales. So I had given you some clue. I'm talking about basic understanding. I hope you know that. So who designed this? Stanley Smith Stevens in 1946. Four level of measurement, and we also call it rating scales. For example, you want to know the status of a person. So what generally we used to do earlier, we used to ask for married and unmarried. Even today, you don't ask for divorce, right? So we have two options, and how to identify it? We give a number, one for married, two for unmarried. Similarly, like gender. So let me see how you will bifurcate a gender. Please respond, everybody. So here we have example of married, unmarried, divorce, MUD, or you can give 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 would be easy for SPSS to understand what you're talking about. The degree of sophistication increase when moved from nominal to ratio. So here it has a limitation. What we call it? We call it nominal data. We call it nominal data. This is kind of a data which is just for a recognition. But how many male, how many female, something like that. So when you want to recognize, you want to put some label. Okay, this is this, this is this, this is this. For example, city. How many metropolitan city we have, right? How many this kind of city we smart cities we have, so that you can give, okay, 1 for smart city, 2 for metropolitan city, something like that, right? uh, so we need to collect more information which would be more useful. So nominal is not so useful, it just gave us some kind of recognition, not more than that. So we need to go ahead, we need to move ahead. And what we need to do, let us see. And if you, so we are talking about nominal level of measurement, describe a difference between the categories of a variable. It is also called categorical scale because the scale divides data into categories. However, categories carries no numerical weight. So here 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever number you have given, it's not actually, here 2 is not more than 1. Remember this. You cannot sum them up. What you can do, you can find out frequency, how many 1 are there, how many 2 are there, how many 3 are there. But can we say that 2 is more than 1 and 3 is more than 2, something like that? No, because you can't say that male is more than female or female is more than 1. You can't say like this. So it doesn't have any numerical weight, right? So male means male, you cannot be put them in, so it's a mutually exclusive. So female cannot be a male and male cannot be a female, right? It offers names of labels, so it's a giving you some kind of label or another kind of attributes. For example, 1 for female and 2 for male are 2 label of gender, and 3 you can give to others or transgender. Here indicator 2 is not more than 1, or 1 female is not less than 2. they are just representing or labeling them. Why 2 is not less than 1 here? Because it's just a kind of recognition, it's a just kind of labeling, not more than that, right? So this is basic kind of measurement, basic kind of data collection you are collecting for your research. Let us move ahead. So these are different ways. A religion, you belong to which religion? Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh, Jainism, right? Okay, great, great, great. So here, can we say that 4 is more than 1 or 2 is more than 3, 3 is more than 2? Let me see your reply, everybody. Can we say like that? 1 hour. Let's go ahead. Another, to overcome from this problem, we have ordinal label measurement. This describes a difference among categories of a variable, allow the categories to rank order as well. So now there was no order or rank in nominal, but what we want to have some rank, we want to have some kind of order, and that will not only categories the variable but also rank in a particular increasing or decreasing order, right? So now we will have some kind of little bit understanding that this is something more, this is less, this is increasing, this is decreasing. So here we can ask for preferences. Preferences may be ranked in terms of low, medium and high, or best to worse. However, the actual or relative value of attribute or differences in attribute value cannot be assessed. But here you cannot quantify it. How much medium is more than low? How much medium is less than high? You can't do it, right? But you know that medium is more than low, but how much we don't know. We have high, high is more than medium, but how much it is we don't know. So in a good, medium and bad, this could be something that good would be more than medium and medium would be more than bad. Researcher cannot quantify how much is good, more than medium and bad in terms of quantity. So it's not actually quantitative. Nominal also was not a kind of quantitative. This is also not a kind of quantitative. But what we do, we want to have something which is a quantitative. Now, an ordinal scale. So an ordinal scale has the properties of identify and magnitude but lack equal unit size and absolute zero. Right? So it doesn't have any zero in between, absolute zero or something like that. The size could be vary, right? How much that vary, we don't know. Now, to overcome from this problem, what we need to do, we have interval level measurement. So we have discussed nominal, we have discussed ordinal. Before I go for interval, let me come to you and let me see if you have any question. We are going ahead and we are moving towards actually quantitative terms. So in nominal, actually it's just a labeling. In second, you ask for a preference, but it's not in quantitative terms. You can't give number to high, how much high is more than medium and how much medium is more than low. So you can't do it like that. So to solve this problem, we have third level of measurement. It's called interval level of measurement. This describes differences among variables, attributes, rank categories, and measure distance between categories and has no true zero. If you club all first rank categories, measure distance high, medium, low, right? That would be in this. But more than that, what would be there? You can see the difference among all these attributes and has no true zero. What does it mean? Has no true zero. So it measures the distance between any 2 points on a scale. What I'm going to tell you, where we have artificial zero and where we have real zero. So in interval level of measurement, we don't have actual real true zero. So there are a lot of instances, there may be a lot of instances where actually we put a 0 which is not a actual 0, which is not a actual true 0, right? For example, a temperature, right? In temperature, have you noticed 0? Anyone? It's a 0 temperature. Which is the freezing point? What is the freezing point? So now we have an interval level measurement. What happens? It has no true 0, I'm telling you, no true 0. It measures the distance between any 2 points on the scale. For example, we want to know how many people are here in this classroom between the age of 20 to 40. So we have 2 points, 20 to 40. How many people fall into this? Tell me. Is there any actual 0 in between? No. Right? No, 0 will not fall at all. So there is 20 to 40. How many people can fall in between? I mean, so many people can you can put them into these two variables, 2 points. So whenever you see 2 points, right, and you see that actual 0 is not falling in between, it generally happens when you ask for sweet and bitter. Now sweet and bitter, when bitter becomes sweet and when sweet becomes bitter, you don't know. And where is that converting point? Where is that actual 0? It will not come because you cannot recognize it, you cannot feel it, you cannot understand it. So that's why you can't say that this is the actual 0. So whenever we talk about human behavior, when human behavior uh, changes from negative to positive or like to dislike, when it's these all things are overlapping to each other, and we want to measure human behavior. To understand human behavior, to know human behavior, we need 0, which is not an actual 0, because human behavior is in a situation, is having such kind of tendency. It's fluctuating little bit, it is fluctuating, so you cannot measure exactly as it is. So for that we need a interval level measurement, we need an interval level measurement. The values measured are not only rank order but also equidistance from each other. It explains how much more or less of one attribute than others. For example, here you can see the interval level measurement in IQ scale of intelligence, where IQ scale calculate value between two attributes carry equal distance. It has arbitrary origin point or no absolute 0 point, right? Oh, this is my own example, like wall clock move between 12 o'clock to 12 o'clock without absolute 0. For example, the time between 2 and 5 a.m. equal times between 3 to 6 a.m. One cannot say, however, that 4 a.m. is the twice as last a.m. 2 a.m. because 0 time is an arbitrary 0 point. In an interval scale, the criteria of identify magnitude and equal unit size are met. So distance would be equal, but nothing can be double because you feel that it's equal to number. You can't say like this. You can't say that here 4 a.m. is twice right to 2 a.m. You can't say like this, right? But here distance are equal, and generally where we have a distance are equal, it's on Likert scale. On Likert scale, what you do? You collect information from individual, from human being about their preferences, their like dislikes, what preferences they have, and you ask them to put their opinion on what? On a scale, right? And you ask from 5 to 1, highly liked, you like it, you can't say anything, you dislike it, highly dislike. So this 5-point scale, 5 4 3 2 1, right, this is basically a interval level measurement. But do you feel that on a Likert scale actual 0 comes? No, actual 0 will not come, right? So whenever you see any scale where actual zero will not fall, right? And you might have seen that like to dislike, when you move from like to dislike, there must be a zero, but it's not actual zero because you don't know when it will come. So it's a continuous something, right? You never know actual zero will come. So I hope this interval level measurement is clear to you. If not, you can ask question. We will not move further because many people feel that they are not able to understand it. So what you need to do, you take any Likert scale, it will fall under a, it look like a ordinary one, but it is actually, it work like a interval. Please ask question now. A work which is very difficult to understand. Why it's a difficult to understand? Because we are talking about some terms, some phenomena which are from social science. In social science, phenomena or terms to understand are not so easy because these all are linked with human being, and human behavior is very complex by nature. If you want to understand their like dislike, if you want to understand for example, when I got married, my parents were against of love marriages, right? So that was the time. I don't know what time was it, a long time back, 22 years back. But when my brother, who was 10 years younger to me, when he wanted to get married, my parents were happy to have love marriage. So what happens here, you will see a transition, transformation in terms of what you call human behavior. So at one point of time, my parents were very rigid, but over the period of time, I don't know what happened. They felt that okay, it's fine if you go for love marriage. Similarly, if you think of human behavior like their dislike, their preferences, what make them happy, what motivate them, so it depends person to person. And capturing all these terms, happiness, satisfaction, quality, motivation, leadership, engagement, these all things are different kind of phenomena, and you cannot have one parameter, you cannot have just one parameter to capture them. So for that, we call them constructs, right? And how to capture them, how to measure it? We have these attributes. So today we are talking about attributes. These are different attributes. Third kind of attribute is interval label, where so you can say that this is a scale called Likert scale. Likert scale, you put 2 points, there would be a zero, but actual not a zero, right? You can't say it's actual zero. You can't say like that, right? Okay, the last one, a ratio level measurement. It has got all the features of last three, but main important point would be it will have absolute zero. Where you see absolute zero? It is most powerful measurement. Make sure if you collect exact information. What is your salary? My salary is 25,050 rupees 95 paisa. You go to another one. This is my salary. If you have exact information with zero, right? For example, profit. What is your profit? This is my profit. Profit may be zero also. Don't you think profit may be zero? Profit may be zero also. So whenever you see these kind of terms where actual zero comes, that would be a ratio level measurement where actually you are capturing the exact information where real zero will exist. So it's a, here you can see ratio data represent the actual amount of a variable. What is the actual amount? So generally in social science, we calculate, we collect relative terms. But if you are able to collect the actual something, if you are able to capture actual motivation, can you do that? No. So for that, what we need to do, we need to go for interval ratio measurement. And here it will have, in ratio, we will have absolute zero. Means earning zero profit. Oh, same example, profit or revenue. You can have zero profit, you can have zero revenue, right? Ratio level measurement is exact age of a customer. Exact age. What is your age? Not in interval, not in some other high, medium, low. Exact age today, right? Salary in decimals, 25,090 rupees 25 paisa. Exact date, exact today, and your age, right? Ratio data has all four properties. So if you have this kind of ratio analysis, you can convert into interval, you can convert into ordinal, and you can convert into ratio. But if you have all those three, you cannot convert into ratio. Remember this. So this is on the top. Ratio level measurement is on the top. Okay, so here you can see, dear participants, let me go from here. Nominal indicate that a difference exists among categories. Categories are Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, but you can't say that one is less than 2 or one is less than 3 or one is less than 4. You can't say like that. Here, ordinal indicate a difference, allow us to rank order the categories. So here ranking A, B, C, D, E. So here it would be A would be more than B because it's a rank. B would be more than C, but I don't know how much difference is there between B and C. I don't know, right? Like strongly agreed, agree, disagree, right? So your scale, so I repeating again, a lot of people they have a confusion. Likert scale is like a ordinal one, but we use it like a interval. We use it like a interval. In interval, what happens? No zero in between, no true zero, like 12 to 12, and you can take two, any two amount in between. A lot of people can fall. For example, in your class, if I ask you what is your age, so assume I can presume that it would be 20, in between 20 to 40. So a lot of people can fall between 20 to 40. So these 2 points in between, anything can fall. You can say sweet and bitter, 2 points, no actual zero in between, all will fall under this, all preferences will fall under this, right? Like and dislike, when like become dislike and dislike become like, you don't know, but there is something in between, but it's not actual converting point, it's not actual transformation point, it's not an actual point, so it's a this. So by nature, Likert scale is ordinal, but when we use it like no true zero, so it becomes interval. And finally, a ratio include all features of interval, true zero. For example, income. What is your income? 55,000 rupees. 50,000, 55,001 rupees. Age is 15 years, 2 months, 4 days. This is my age. This is, so these are all attributes. So after construct, it's a dimensions of a construct or subconstructs, then variables to items, we call them questions also, we call them statement also. With that we capture actually the variable or construct, and to capture that we have these attributes 1 2 3 4, like this, like strongly agreed is, and this scale, like it scale, and exact value. These are different forms which you're gonna use in your questionnaire. For what? To capture what? To capture social phenomena. And social phenomena, we already have discussed that in social science, we have a social phenomena which is called motivation, right? Happiness, satisfaction, quality. These all different terms which we use in social science. If you want to capture them, if you want to measure them, it is not an easy job. But these are the different way. These all are attributes which help us to capture. So you see any questionnaire, it would be made of these kind of different attributes, right? So let me go ahead. Now here, this is just something. If you have a nominal data, what you can do, I will give you this kind of PPT, don't worry about it. So when you have a nominal data, which what you can do, you can use a chi-square, right? You can use a chi-square. Here you can see when you have an ordinal, what you can do, you can do go for rank order correlation. Median you can go for, sorry, when you have an interval, you can go for these kind of tools, t-test, f-test. When you have a ratio, you can go for t and f, right? So that is bit advanced, I'm not going to discuss right now this. Now, very, very important point. This is gonna be a most important point of today lecture. Lot of people, so we are talking about research design. So first we discussed that how to collect data. We need to collect data with the help of questionnaire, and one caveat that please go and use already developed, design, tested, validity, reliability is there of already built on questions, already designed questionnaire. Use that, right? And if you want to make your own, how to make it? These are the different attributes you need to use in your questionnaire that we have discussed. The very, very important point, when we think of a research, in research design, very important questions comes in our mind. What should be the sample size? How to justify your sample size? Because I can feel a lot of people would be curious to know how to decide, how to justify, how to defend that this should be the sample size. It's not an easy job, I'm going to tell you. These 4 or 5 options I have taken from a book. In that book, they have given clearly the citation. And when you defend your presentation, when you defend your sample size, you can cite that book, you can cite that page number. And what I'm going to do, not only a page number, not only that reference, not only that citation, I am going to give you that book, right? I'm going to give you that book, and that book you can keep for further reference. And not only a further reference, when you present and justify your sample size, anyone on this earth ask you for how did you select this sample size, you will have justification. See, this is the citation, I have mentioned it, I am mentioned referring it, and on the basis of this, it's not me, don't make my life miserable, right? What you need to do, because you can't say that this is because I feel so. No, you can't feel anything. You need to tell them that this is the justification, this is the right kind of justification, which is why I have selected this. And I'm quoting that person, I'm quoting these people, those who has suggested, those who have requested, those who has mentioned that these are different way of selecting a sample size. You can select any particular method, right? So let us go for further and see what are the different ways. So question arise here, how large is the large enough? Because generally we feel that uh, our sample size should be a large, it should be large enough to represent the whole population. Not only the whole population, it will give us some kind of understanding that our data is normally distributed. To check it, what we need to do, we need to have maximum or large sample size. But how large that large would be, it's a big question mark, right? So this is a very difficult to answer. So I have mentioned here one reference, I'm citing one, McCallum in 1999. uh, so for a 20 item factor analysis, right, 100 subject would probably be too few. So if you have 20 items and you have 100 sample size, it would not work. But suppose you have 90 questions, 90 items, will you go for 900, right? Minimum 10%? No, you should not. For that, 400 might be adequate. Don't worry about it, right? So don't worry about it. I have mentioned here, listen carefully. If suppose you have 20 questions or 20 items in your questionnaire, so will it be sufficient to have 100 respondent or 100 sample size? Probably no, it would be few. But suppose you have 90 items, 90 questions in your questionnaire. So would you be going for 10%, minimum 10 times, not 10%? So that would be 900. No, you don't need to go for that. So for that, the right answer would be 400 would be sufficient. Now let me go ahead. what Tilse and Tilse has mentioned, a ratio of about 5 to 10 subject per item up to about 300 subjects. So suppose what we need to do, don't go for 5, I mean go up to 10. So if you go for 10, that would be sufficient. A ratio of about 5 to 10 subject per item up to about 300 subjects. So you can go for that also. So if you have about 5 to 10 items in your questionnaire, what you need to do, you cannot do a 10 times of that, it would be 100 only. So what you need to do, suppose you have 10 questions in your questionnaire, what you need to do, you can go up to 300 sample size. That's not a problem. So they suggested that when the sample is large as 300, the ratio can be relaxed. So don't worry about 5 times, 10 times, don't worry about that. 300 may be the thumb rule, right? So let me go ahead. There could be one that, okay, minimum 5 times or 10 times, that can be relaxed if you have 300, don't worry about it. Now another citation, Comrade 1973, that classify a sample of 100 as poor. 100 is not sufficient. 200 as fair. So decide you want to remain poor, you want to remain fair. 200 is fair. 300 is good. 500 is very good. And 1000 is excellent. So you can cite that person that in his reference in this book, this person has mentioned. So Comrade in 1988 stated that a sample size of 200 is adequate in most of the cases of ordinary factor analysis that involve not more than 40 items. So that could be another benchmark, right? So what I'm going to do, so you have here 2 or 3 different methods. One is, as we mentioned, 10 times or a 5 times of item. That could work, right? That ratio can be relaxed if it's a 300. Then second method, 300, 500, 1000. This is the thumb rule. You can adopt anyone. You can go for 300 if you feel it's good. You can go for 500, very good. And if you have time, you can go for 1000. That would be excellent, right? So these all, whatever I have quoted here, I have taken from one book. It's an international book. I will share a copy of that. That's a soft copy I have. And you can refer that book, not only a book, you can cite this page number and you can cite these people also and can say that on the basis of this, I have taken, you can justify your sample size, right? There may be a cases that where you will get some value, statistical tool are also there. If you can justify with that, that's okay. But in general, that could be other way. That could be other way where which really can help you to justify your sample size. So today we have discussed very important thing, attributes, items, how to make questionnaire or a scale or measurement we call it also. Then second thing we have used how to justify your sample size. Now you don't need to worry about sample size because now you have a justification. You can cite these people. I will give you a page number beside that book, right? And plus the most important thing today would be that what kind of sampling techniques we need to use. Because when you choose your sample, it should be most of the time when we use tools and techniques, they say it should be randomly selected. What do you mean by randomly selected, right? What method we will be using, what to do with that method, that is the another concept which is a very important in your research design. If we are able to finish this, that means our research design is completed. But we don't have time because it's already 1. So what I will do tomorrow, not tomorrow, we don't have class. A day after tomorrow, I will take 10 to 15 minutes on sampling techniques and I will tell you what is the right way to select a sample size, not sample size already we have discussed, a sample technique, how to select random sample. And there are some software available, there are some website available, so we will discuss that also, and that will give us a clear understanding that with this we can select our sample, right? That will be a right sampling method. So this was something which I thought I should discuss with you, right? So tomorrow on the next class we'll be talking about sampling techniques. How will it be a convenience sampling? Will it be a random sampling or cluster or a strata? We will discuss about that in day after tomorrow in the next class. So before I leave, I gave you 5 to 10 minutes for discussion. If you have any question, you are most welcome. Feel free to ask question. Don't worry about it. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you very much. Now session is open for question and answer.